welcome to the deep dive, where we'll deep dive into things.
Mm-hmm.
You've given us some fascinating source material
Yeah.
on the story of Cain and Abel.
Can't wait.
Specifically, Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 to 26.
Right.
And I think we all know the basic gist.
Yeah.
But what awaits us beyond that familiar Sunday school version?
Right.
What can this ancient text reveal about early humans,
Mm-hmm.
about jealousy, and maybe even the origins of civilization itself?
Well, that's what's so intriguing, you know?
Yeah.
While it's a story that many consider a simple morality tale, you know,
Right.
it kind of offers a glimpse into these dynamics of a fledgling human society
Yeah.
grappling with issues that still resonate today.
Okay, so let's set the scene.
Okay.
We've got Adam and Eve,
Right.
recently evicted from the Garden of Eden.
Right.
And they have two sons, Cain the farmer
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Abel the shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
I've always found that detail about their occupations
Yes.
so interesting.
Why is that?
I don't know, it just seems significant somehow.
Well, it hints at one of the earliest societal divisions, doesn't it?
Oh.
The settled farmer versus the nomadic herder.
Hmm.
And, you know, this division isn't just biblical, it's echoed through our history.
Right.
Anthropologists believe this transition from hunter-gathering
Right.
to settled agriculture was so important,
Yeah.
played a crucial role in the development of human societies.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it also brought new challenges.
Right.
The competition for land and resources, the shift in social structures,
Right.
all potential breeding grounds for conflict.
So right from the start, we're seeing this possible source of tension.
Exactly.
Then we get to the offerings.
Okay.
Cain brings the fruit of the ground,
Mm-hmm.
while Abel offers the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof.
Yes.
And of course, God favors Abel's offering.
He does.
This is where I always get a bit stuck.
Okay.
Was it just about the offerings themselves?
Mm.
Or is there something deeper going on here?
Well, the text uses very specific language,
Right.
which is always a clue.
Sure.
You have to remember that in many ancient cultures, the fat
Mm-hmm.
was considered the best,
Really?
the most valuable part of the animal.
Oh, wow.
Offering it was a sign of respect
Okay.
and devotion, and the firstlings, the firstborn of the flock,
Mhm.
you know, that suggests a sacrifice of something truly precious.
Yeah.
Not just any old sheep,
Right.
but the one that would ensure the continuation of the flock.
Wow, I never thought about it that way.
It's interesting.
So Abel's giving up something vital
Yeah.
for his livelihood,
Mm-hmm.
while Cain's offering seems, well,
Yes.
a bit more everyday.
Exactly. And there's another layer to consider.
Oh, really?
Some scholars believe that during this period, pastoral societies, those who raised livestock,
Mm-hmm.
were seen as holding a higher status
Oh,
than agricultural ones.
wow.
The products they provided, meat, wool, milk,
Right.
were seen as more valuable. This could explain why God, at least in the context of this story,
Oh, right.
seems to favor Abel's offering.
So it's not just about the offerings themselves,
Right.
but what they represented
Mm-hmm.
in terms of social standing
Exactly.
and the level of sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's already so much more nuanced
Right.
than just a simple lesson about being good.
This is where the story gets really interesting
Okay.
because it taps into something incredibly human.
Mm.
Cain's reaction.
Okay.
He becomes very wroth and his countenance fell.
Yeah.
Who among us hasn't felt that pang of jealousy
Oh, totally.
when someone else seems to be getting all the attention
Yeah.
or approval?
I mean, sibling rivalry is practically a universal experience, right?
Totally.
But then God steps in and gives Cain a warning.
Yes, he does.
If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
It's like God is acknowledging Cain's anger
Yeah,
and giving him a choice,
right.
emphasizing his free will.
And this concept of free will is crucial. Okay.
God doesn't punish Cain for his feelings.
No.
He offers him a path forward.
Right.
This suggests that even in the face of negative emotions,
Right.
we have the capacity to choose our actions to do what is right.
It's a powerful message. But of
Better.
course, we know how the story unfolds.
Sadly, yes.
Cain makes a very different choice.
Mm-hmm.
He leads Abel out to the field.
Right.
And let's just say it doesn't end well for Abel.
The text is brutally direct.
It is.
Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him.
Wow.
This act, the first murder recorded in the Bible,
Right.
marks a turning point not only for Cain, but for all of humanity.
And then comes that infamous question.
Mm-hmm.
When God asks Cain where Abel is,
Right.
he retorts, Am I my brother's keeper?
Uh-huh.
I've always found that line so fascinating.
Why is that?
On one hand, it's a blatant attempt to evade responsibility.
Right.
But on the other hand, doesn't it also raise a profound question?
About our obligations to one another.
Absolutely. Kane's question, while dripping with sarcasm,
Yeah.
in this context has echoed throughout history.
Right.
What is our responsibility to our fellow human beings?
Right.
Are we, in fact, our brothers and sisters' keepers?
Yeah.
This story, written thousands of years ago, still forces us to grapple with that question.
It's incredible how a text this old can be so relevant
I know, it's amazing.
to our lives today.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there. The consequences for Cain
Right.
are swift and severe.
Mm.
He's cursed from the ground, condemned to be a wanderer.
And notice how his punishment directly relates to his former life
Oh, okay.
as a farmer.
Right.
The very earth he tilled is now closed to him.
Wow.
It's as if he's being forced to embrace the nomadic lifestyle
Well,
of the brother he killed,
Yeah.
forever separated from the settled life he once knew.
That's a chilling detail
It is.
I never noticed before.
It adds a whole new layer
Yeah.
of meaning.
To the story.
And it highlights the interconnectedness of everything. Our
Yeah.
actions have consequences,
Right.
not just for ourselves,
Yeah.
but for our relationship with the world around us.
And as if being cursed from the earth wasn't enough,
Right.
Cain is also consumed by fear,
Yeah,
terrified of being killed himself. Talk about irony, right?
absolutely.
The murderer now living in constant fear
Exactly.
for his own life.
It speaks to the cyclical nature of violence.
Right.
One act begets another,
Mhm.
creating a chain reaction
Right.
of fear and retaliation.
But then God intervenes again.
He does.
He places a mark on Cain to protect him even in punishment.
Right.
There's this element of mercy.
And this mark, it's never specifically described.
Oh, interesting.
Was it a scar, a brand, or something invisible?
Wow.
A burden he carried within him.
Hmm.
This ambiguity has fueled centuries of speculation.
Right.
Was it a symbol of sham, a reminder of his crime,
Right.
or a sign of God's enduring protection? A paradox of grace amidst judgment.
That mystery makes this story even more captivating, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It invites us to consider not only the nature of punishment,
Mm-hmm.
but also the complexities of redemption.
Right.
Can a person who has committed a terrible act ever truly be forgiven?
Yeah.
Can they find a path back to a meaningful existence?
It's a good question.
These are questions that continue to haunt us.
Wow, we've covered so much ground already.
I know, right?
And we're just getting started.
Yeah.
I'm eager to dive into the rest of this story
Me too.
and see what other insights we can uncover.
I think you'll find that the story of Cain and Abel has even more surprises in store,
Okay.
forcing us to re-examine our assumptions
Right.
and delve deeper into the human condition.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. It's fascinating how the story shifts at this point.
Yeah.
You know, we move from this deeply personal tragedy to something much broader,
Right.
the development of civilization itself. And guess who plays a key role?
I'm guessing Cain's descendants?
That's right.
That's right after all the darkness and despair, we get this almost unexpected turn.
Yeah.
Instead of being portrayed as villains,
Right.
they're the ones building cities, creating music and art, even mastering metalworking.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, the first time I really noticed that detail, it completely blew my mind.
The lineage of a murderer laying the foundations
Right.
for so much of what we consider progress.
Yeah.
It challenges our simplistic notions
Totally.
of good and evil legacy and inheritance.
It makes you wonder
Hmm.
if innovation, even civilization itself, can arise from the most unexpected.
Right. Of circumstances.
Yeah,
It raises profound questions about the nature of progress, doesn't it?
totally.
Think about how many advancements throughout history have been driven by conflict,
Right.
by necessity,
Mm-hmm.
by the desire to overcome adversity. It's a sobering thought, but one worth considering.
Yeah, there's this tension in the story
Mhm.
between the weight of the past, Cain's act,
Yeah.
and the potential for the future, represented by his descendants.
Yes.
Then, just as we're starting to see a glimmer of hope,
Okay.
we encounter Lamech, another descendant of Cain.
Right.
He boasts about killing a man and claims even greater protection than Cain received.
Yeah.
Is this the cycle of violence rearing its ugly head again?
It's certainly one interpretation.
Okay.
A Lamech's boast could suggest that violence has become ingrained,
Right.
normalized within this lineage.
Interesting.
Some scholars see it as a reflection of the idea of blood for blood,
Right.
the escalating retaliation
Okay.
that often defines cycles of vengeance.
Almost like a warning,
Yeah,
a foreshadowing of the conflicts that will plague humanity for centuries to come.
right.
But there are also different interpretations of Lamech's words. Right.
Exactly.
Some argue he was acting in self-defense.
The text doesn't provide a clear context for the killing.
Okay.
This ambiguity allows for multiple readings.
So was Lamech a cold-blooded killer boasting of his brutality? Or was he a man driven to violence out of necessity, desperately seeking justification for his actions?
It's a good question.
It really makes you think about how we interpret stories,
Right.
how our own biases and experiences shape our understanding of the past.
And how easily those interpretations can be manipulated,
Right.
even weaponized.
Yeah.
Throughout history, this story has been used to justify all sorts of violence and oppression.
We can't forget that stories, even sacred ones, can be powerful tools
Right.
for both good and evil.
For sure.
It all depends on how they're wielded.
Mm-hmm.
But then, just as the story seems to be spiraling into darkness,
Okay.
we get the birth of Seth, Adam and Eve's third son.
Right.
He's described as a replacement for Abel,
A new beginning.
a symbol of hope and a new beginning.
It's a powerful moment of redemption, isn't it?
It is.
After all the bloodshed and despair,
Yeah.
there's this sense of renewal, a chance for humanity to start afresh.
It's almost like the story's acknowledging that even in the face of terrible tragedy, there's always the possibility for healing and growth.
And that resilience,
Right.
that capacity for hope,
Yeah.
is perhaps one of the most enduring qualities of the human spirit. But even with Seth,
Yeah.
the shadow of Cain's legacy lingers.
It makes you wonder, is it possible to truly escape the past?
That's a good question.
Or are we forever shaped by the actions of those who came before us?
And how do we reconcile the good that emerged from Cain's lineage with the horror of his initial act?
Right.
Does it force us to reevaluate our understanding of justice, of punishment, of redemption itself?
Right.
It seems the story is less about offering answers
Right.
and more about prompting us to ask these difficult questions.
That's what I love about diving into these ancient texts.
Yeah.
They don't shy away from the messy complexities of the
Right.
human experience.
No, they don't.
They force us to confront the darkness and the light,
Mhm.
the good and the evil that coexist within us all.
It's all there.
And speaking of complexity, let's go back to that mark God placed on Cain for a moment.
Okay.
We talked about its ambiguity,
Right.
but I'm curious to explore that further.
Okay.
What if we consider the possibility that the mark wasn't something physical at all?
Ah. Now that's an intriguing thought. What if it was a mark on his soul,
Right.
invisible to others,
Yeah.
but a constant reminder of his deed, a burden he carried,
Right.
a weight that shaped his every interaction?
It makes that fear of being killed, his constant looking over his shoulder,
Yeah.
all the more poignant. He's carrying the weight of his actions wherever he goes.
Right.
No one needs to attack him. He's already living with the consequences.
And perhaps that's a more profound punishment
Yeah.
than any physical harm, don't you think?
I do.
To be haunted by your own actions,
Mm-hmm.
to live with the constant awareness of the pain you've inflicted.
It adds a whole new dimension to the idea of bearing the mark of Cain.
Right.
It's not just a label. It's a lived experience, a psychological and emotional reality.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
that mark was also intended for others, not as a way to identify Cain,
Okay.
but as a symbol, a warning, a reminder of the devastating consequences of violence, a plea for humanity to choose a different path. We started by talking about Cain's descendants as representing progress,
Yeah.
but is there another interpretation?
You mean instead of seeing them as bringing positive advancements,
Right.
could they be seen as perpetuating the darker aspects of Cain's legacy?
Precisely the development of cities, the mastery of metalworking.
Yeah.
These could be viewed as not simply advancements, but also as tools for greater conflict, for more sophisticated forms of violence. We have music and art mentioned.
Right.
But the text doesn't describe them as being used for good or for evil, simply that they exist as a result of this lineage.
It's like the story's presenting us with a fork in the road.
Right.
One path leads to progress,
To innovation.
to innovation, maybe even to something resembling redemption. But the other path,
The one shadowed by Cain's initial act
yeah,
leads to a cycle of violence,
right,
to the misuse of knowledge and power. Which path will humanity choose?
And that choice.
That tension between creation and destruction is
Yeah.
something we're still grappling with today, isn't it?
Totally.
Think about the ways in which technology can be used to build or to destroy, to connect or to isolate.
It's true.
The story of Cain and Abel is ultimately a reflection of our own ongoing struggle.
It's incredible how a story this ancient
No.
can feel so relevant, so immediate.
It really is.
It's not just a tale of two brothers.
Right.
It's a mirror reflecting back our own complexity,
Exactly.
our own potential for both good and evil. And it leaves us with so many questions,
Yeah.
so much to ponder. It feels like we've uncovered an entire world within this one short chapter of Genesis.
I know, right? It's so much more than just a morality tale about good versus evil.
Yep.
It's a story that keeps unfolding the
Yep.
more you delve into it.
We've talked about societal structures, free will, the cyclical nature of violence,
Right.
the burden of legacy,
Yeah.
even the psychological weight of guilt and punishment.
And we've just scratched the surface.
But there's one more thread I'd like to tug on before we wrap up.
Okay.
We've talked about the different interpretations of Cain's mark.
Right.
But what strikes me is how this ambiguity invites us, the readers, to participate in the story.
That's a keen observation.
Yeah.
It's as if the text deliberately leaves this space for us to fill in.
To grapple with the unanswered questions.
Right.
Exactly. It's
Well.
not a neat, tidy parable with a clear moral.
Nope.
It's messy. It's challenging. And it forces us to confront our own assumptions and interpretations.
And that active interpretation
Yeah.
of wrestling with the ambiguity is
Okay.
where the real learning happens.
Instead of passively receiving a message,
Right.
we're actively engaging with the text, bringing our own experiences
Exactly.
and perspectives to bear.
Which is exactly what we're doing right now with this deep dive.
Yeah.
Precisely, we're not just retelling the story.
Right.
We're having a conversation with it, exploring its nuances and
Yeah.
implications.
I think that's what makes this story so enduring.
What is that?
It's not fixed.
Okay.
It's fluid. It adapts to each generation, each reader, inviting us to find our own meaning within it.
And that meaning might change over time as we ourselves change and evolve. What struck us as children reading this story
Right.
might hold a completely different significance
Totally.
when we revisit it as adults.
Or even in the course of a single conversation like today.
Yeah, for sure.
I know my understanding of Cain and Abel has shifted significantly just by talking this through with you.
That's the power of dialogue.
Yeah.
The back and forth, the sharing of perspectives
Right.
allows us to see things in new ways,
Yeah.
to challenge our own assumptions,
Totally.
and expand our understanding.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what would you say is the most important takeaway for our listener? What should they walk away pondering?
Perhaps it's the realization that even a story as familiar as Cain and Abel can still surprise us,
Yeah.
challenge us, and offer new insights. It's a reminder that the texts that have shaped our culture, our beliefs, our understanding of the world,
Right.
they're not static relics.
Right.
They're living documents
I love that.
that continue to speak to us across time and space.
And maybe it's also a challenge to resist the temptation to settle for easy answers,
Okay.
for simplistic interpretations,
Right.
to embrace the ambiguity, the questions that linger, even after the story ends.
Yes, to lean into the discomfort of not knowing,
Right.
of wrestling with complexity.
Yeah.
Because it's in those spaces, those
Right.
gray areas, that we often find the most profound truths.
Beautifully put.
Thank you.
So to our listener out there, we leave you with this.
All
You
right.
don't just read the story. Engage with it.
Right.
Question it. Challenge it. Let it challenge you. And who knows? Maybe you'll discover something new about yourself, about humanity, about the very nature of good and evil along the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and keep exploring those depths wherever you find them.
Absolutely.